All right. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. How you all doing? Ladies and gentlemen, look, turn around. Hey, how's it going? Nice mask covering your face. There you go. There you go. Good morning, everybody. Today is a special day for the case that we're all being recorded because this is going to be my assignment for ASU, my first performance exam. So be on your best behavior, or else Mr. Cross and I will both give you a new one. Be nice to me. And we're gonna go through this together and have a good day doing an assignment, some notes, and we're gonna talk about quiz stuff or your test stuff right now. So I included your test grades on Monday night and Tuesday. Most of you probably already know, right? Yeah. The best out of the 3 periods, to be honest, for Gen Ed, some of you probably still aren't happy with your grade, I would imagine. So retakes will happen once everyone finishes taking the test. We still have a few people in the 6th period. We have, I believe, 1 person in this class. Do you need to take it? Do you feel confident taking it right now? No? Okay. Well, before or after school, we can work at time with me to cross after class is over before you end up leaving. We can get that done and we can get all the tests in and then we can start doing retakes for everybody. The stipulation that I'm adding for retakes is, cross lets you do the average between retake and tests. I guess you gotta ask. I expect the study guide because if you remember, I told you to get the study guide done. If you did the study guide, they would be better. So I'd like to see some effort. Show me that you did your study guide to the best of your abilities, and then you can once you show me that when you come in for your retake, all good. We'll give you the pass ladder. Any questions about any of the information I indicated? All right. I let him in. Are you recording? Are we gonna be recording for us as well? On the phone that I gave you? Yeah, he's in there. Yeah, well, he's connecting to audio, so technically no. All right. So I'm gonna pass out your guide and notes. I'm gonna wait for Cross to report. Yes, they're starting a new unit. Starting in the 1920s, Unit 8, Boom the Bus.
Oh, what a great discussion.
All right. Bro. Oh no, I missed one out of all that. I missed one. All right, so if you could all take out a step for me, we're going to start off with a nice little bell ringer. Bell will work, warm up today. Heard it called by many different names. All of them work, mean the same thing. Oh. No, this is just for you guys. I got an egg.
When we did that, girl, I wasn't paying attention.
All right, so we're gonna have about 5 minutes to answer these questions. A couple of these came right from your test. The third one is an opinion question. I'm gonna call from a couple of people, a mixture online of Kim too, and in the class. So, we begin. Sitting around the room, make sure you're doing what you're doing out there in your phone. Anything like that? Can you online kids hear me well? Can I get a thumbs up?
Not really. There's a lot of feedback and it's not very clear audio.
Not very clear audio, but thanks, Robert. Do you at least know what you're supposed to do? So I want you guys to answer these 3 questions on the board right now and then type them in the chat so I know that you did it.
Okay.
All right, thanks, Robert. Yes. You guys got a couple minutes left? Anything in the chat? Not yet. But I will pull it up so I can see your guys' answers. Wanted to rehash our learning from the last week and then it comes to what we're talking about. All right, well, that's going to change this year, right? Well, now we're in person for this entire year. Your score's going to go until we go. Oh. Oh, good job, online kids. Luke, Cole, Robert, I appreciate it. Thank you so much. I will be calling on one of you to share your answers for one of these questions. You guys got a minute left? Should be plenty of time for 3 questions. guys got about 30 seconds left. Everyone feel confident in their next year?
No, I'm the
Oh,
first
you
one.
are? You're the first one to make a call. Yes. Oh.
I got the first one. No.
Well, I would definitely suggest writing the other two down once you get these. All right. All right, everyone. Eyes on me. Turn around your seats. Face forward. Low. Thank you. All right. Number one. Did America join the League of Nations? Explain why they did or didn't. Trevor. Wonderful. She said, America did not join the League of Nations because we didn't want to be tied down in European affairs, and then decided to use contents in our answer and cite George W.'s farewell address, saying that we should not get entangled with foreign affairs. Brilliant answer. Thank you. That is correct. Number two, did America sign the Treaty of Versailles? Let's go with Robert Grant. Can you answer that question for us? Number two.
No, we did not.
Do you know why did we not sign the Treaty of Versailles? Thank you. Your answer was right. Can I get a why?
Because it would have had some issues between everybody in Germany, and there was very harsh consequences in there.
Partly right, yes. He says we did not sign the Treaty of Versailles because it was hard consequences on Germany and it would lead to a lot of trouble. Those answers are correct. I would add on to that Wilson was a Democratic president at the time. He goes to Paris to get the treaty all signed, has his 14 points. Europe rejects him. And they're like, we'll do one, and that's the League of Nations. That's it. That's all you're getting. And he's like, fine. He's all disgruntled. He goes home, then has a stroke. And he's bedridden. And then his wife takes over to be the secret first lady of the United States for a bit. But then we have a Republican Congress. And even back then, Republicans and Democrats didn't always see eye to eye. Shocker, funny. But they didn't, and Congress's job is to ratify all treaties. So they didn't ratify the Treaty of Versailles and signed a separate thing with Germany from that. Number three, let's go with Joe. It's an opinion question, Joe. It's Joe, what is number three? In your opinion, do these decisions have any consequences? All right, what consequences might happen? It's an opinion, just pull out of your brain with the content. Think about World War I. Now, they could, Joe. They could go to war with Germany again. And guys, guess what? In about 20 years, that is going to happen. Because of the Treaty of Versailles, America not joining the League of Nations leads to a ramp-up in war again. And that's one of the main consequences that's going to happen along with the Depression in the 30s. I mean, the people who were wronged in the Treaty of Versailles, like Italy, Japan, Germany, they're all going to be the quote-unquote bad guys in the next war and really angry with all the good guys and cause another war. You guys remember this political cartoon? Frost showed us this one, a nice bridge with America being the keystone to the League of Nations. Yeah, some of you remember it, so you're nodding your heads out there. Well, we didn't join the League of Nations, causes a huge domino effect with things for World War II. Now let's start in today's lesson. So, look at your guided note sheets. I'm going a little bit out of order. We should be doing the Red Scare first, but I really wanted to jump into the 1920s. So skip the first three sections on your guided note sheet. We're starting with the economic boom. So the very last bolded point down there. Now, let's get talking about the 20s that everyone wanted to happen again this century, and then it just didn't start out very well. Oh. So click on this, and now let's do it. There we go. Welcome to the 20s, everybody. You like jazz? Thank you for the either side or doodles. I couldn't tell this. So, we're talking about the 1920s. All right. Economic boom. Now remember, America after World War I, the 20s, big, huge boom. We came out like the heavy lifting champion of economics. In this time period, we explode and boom economically. Politically, we're kind of like now with the rest of the world and focus on ourselves. You'll see we'll take a few steps back in this time era. As well as socially, we're going to have a bit of a strife, a tussle. You're going to see some conflicts of old versus new, modernists versus traditionalists, some Victorian era versus the lost generation. All this is going to happen in the 20s. Big changes happen on the social level. So, like I said, America exits World War I as an economic heavyweight fighter. Like we're 1-2 in everybody. Because you got to remember, we didn't fight a war on our soil. We fought in Europe. So we're just like resting easy. We don't have to pay for repairs. We're trying to fix our economy or anything like that. We're relaxing easy, collecting paychecks from both Britain, France, Germany. Because remember, what of the 4 reasons did we get into the war that involves money? You guys remember that one? Loan and repayment. We paid loans to both sides, correct? We paid that $2.7 billion to the Allies and the $27 million to the Central Power. Well, now we're collecting on that. It's time to pay Uncle Sam. So we're just getting relaxed as our economy increases and we're getting paid by everyone in Europe. So Americans who were rationing during war now had capital investment spend. We're rolling in dough. We're like Scrooge McDuck jumping into his money vault and swimming in there. America was all of it, large amounts of money from both the Allies and Central Powers, like I told you about. And now universities now had business schools to train competent business leaders. So it's not as much as pulling yourself up by your bootstraps type of thing, like you have with Vanderbilt, Carnegie, and everyone like that. You now have universities to train you how to do the businesses, how to do the negotiations and the deals. Yes, sir.
Were there still monopolies?
Oh, very much so. Roosevelt didn't get rid of all of them with his trust busting activity, which some of you put for economic stuff and the test for the SAQ was really good. It was a good answer. If you explained it well. I gave you a point for saying trust. So let me tell you in numbers and dollars how much we increased. In 1895, the average annual income was $95. Not bad for 1895, I have to say. Not good for today, but $95 is a respectable amount. But then in 1918, average annual income was $586. Students, is $586 more than $95? Yes, by a lot. So in a little over 20 years, our annual income increased dramatically after World War, well, even before World, like at the end of World War I, and a little bit after before. People had more money to spend, and they surely did. People were rolling in dough and spent like they had all the capital in their back pocket. Consumer spending went up significantly. People were buying products left and right, some things they didn't need, some things they just wanted. Now they had the money to do that. The U.S. economy increased by 34% in between 1922 and 1929. 7 years. And 7 years, our production and economy went up by 34%. Now, how did they spend it though? If you had all this money and were living in the 1920s, how would you spend your money? Quentin, how would you spend your money in the 1920s? Give me a school appropriate answer. Vacations? Yes, yes. How about like go on anything entertainment wise, like some sports balls? Yes, of course. Maybe a car? Well, yes. We have not only new technologies, but expansions into every American. Expansions to every American. Not bad. But if I go back to this, universities now have business schools to train competent business leaders. We now see those business leaders starting new markets. We have automobiles, we got Henry Ford, we got electricity, Edison, Tesla, light bulbs, Tesla coil, telephone. You can see the picture down there at the beginning of the telephone. You speak into this end over here, it captures the vibrations, kind of acts like a telegram wire, and it sends the vibrations to this weird contraption where it spits them out, and then you can listen in here. You guys have probably seen old cartoons where it's like 1920s, 1930s, and they got the phone here to listen and to speak into. Those are real. Having some trouble back there, Kevin? Yeah. What do you mean? Oh. We have chemical companies. Do you remember those chemical warfare weapons we used in World War I? Yeah, mustard gas, burned your lungs, caused really painful things to happen. We're going to start investing in the chemical companies and looking into that type of stuff. We have radios, which was big and huge. It's like when the TV came out and people could actually buy it commercially. It was like that for the 20s. Because now you can listen to all the important news in the world, or sports information, or fireside chats from a very specific president right there in your home. You didn't have to spend a nickel on the newspaper every day. It was a wonderful invention for back then. And appliances like a refrigerator, eventually an ice machine in the 50s, a toaster. And these type of inventions would cause the keeping up with the Joneses effect, which we'll talk about later, and we even still have it today. But know this, a bunch of new technologies came out because of the industry's rapid growth and expansion. Speaking about automobiles, like Quentin really wants to buy a new automobile. The assembly line created by Henry Ford. Hey, you guys know Ford, right? That company's still around today the last time I checked. Well, he was a huge competitor in the automotive industry and revolutionized it by the assembly line. No, those two words. Assembly line. So Ford's plan was to train workers to do one job that they could perform at a rapid pace all day. So it would be like a conveyor belt, and you have one guy who was just doing tires. He's like, just doing tires the entire day, screwing the nuts and bolts on those tires. And you had another guy put in the steering wheel, and another guy put it in the brake pedal because those are important. Another guy installing the windshield wipers. That's what people would do day in and day out, and it would just increase their efficiency in production because they were getting so good at it, The repetition theory, if you do something over and over and over and over again, eventually you just know it, or you get really good at it, like solving a Rubik's Cube under a minute. So this led to lower costs because you don't have to hire so many workers to do one job. Now you got a couple of guys who are just doing tires, and are really good at it. Increased productivity because people have done it over and over and over and over until they bang their head on the wall, but they're able to do it really well. Unlike if you just hired Joe Schmo off the street and told him to do tires. He'd probably look at you how it holds a screwdriver backwards. And lowered it consumer prices because now the demand is so far up there that supply is so far up there that demand can finally catch up and they can lower the price. And it increased demand, like I said, because now we have all this extra supply. It's not taking us a day to make a car, it's taking us 20 minutes to make a car. And if we're putting out a car every 20 minutes, we have a bunch of cars left over. And that means people can now start buying these cars that weren't available beforehand because they were so expensive, because they took so long to make. And higher profits. So it was like a win-win-win from everyone. The consumer win, the workers won, and the business owners, like Ford won because they were making money, people were getting cars, people were getting paid. The assembly line. Train workers to do one job repeatedly over and over, extremely effective. And a fun fact, Ford dominated the motor industry, but you want to know what their one little downfall was? Color. Ford, there's a famous quote from Ford saying you can have it in any color you want as long as it's black. So GMC would later come in and would offer cars in multiple colors, and that would outsell Ford because people like to personalize themselves and be like, I want the purple car. Give me the purple Model T. And I do not want to kind of see a purple Model T. That sounds kind of exciting. So, because of this in the assembly line, income and wages increased. We won. The progressive era actually helped. These workers are finally getting their due, getting their pay. They're making money. Unemployment falls. Because now you can hire, again, any Joe Schmo off the street, get him to tires for a little bit, and then he understands tires, and then he's a professional at tires. So it was no longer you had to be a skilled worker and study blacksmithing for years under your father and then move on to your uncle who taught you even more about blacksmithing. Become a famous blacksmith. You could be a Southern or Eastern European who came off the boat and pick up a wrench, and after a couple of years, you're really good at screwing in tires or the steering wheel. And because of this, skilled workers aren't badly needed. More people qualified for jobs. Like I said, you're not from birth anymore a carpenter or a blacksmith or a cobbler. You're now just a regular dude walking off the street who's poor, and we're just like, sure, can you hold a wrench properly? And you're like, is it like this? You're like, it is. And then after a couple of years, they're professionals at what they do because of the assembly line. So, increasing investments towards research and technology and energy. Oil and electricity are huge during these time periods. I mean, I already told you about Tesla and Edison. I mean, eventually we're going to have an entire world fair lit up with Edison bulbs, and eventually all the Tesla coil, and just huge investments in further electricity like alternating current and direct current, which will help power things, because that's what electricity does. A lot more people investing. So we have more money now. So what people usually do with that excess money, like all you guys are doing now with investing in GameStop and AMC and Nokia and Dogecoin, people are now investing their money into the stock market. So the pros is more money available for expansion. Our economy is going to grow because more people are dumping money into the stock market. The cons is citizens borrowed money from the bank to invest on the stock market. So they'd be going over to Mr. Bankman over here, and I'm just like, I need a $300 loan. And then I take that $300 loan, and I go over to the stock market here and dump it all into the stock market on Ford. Sure, on Ford. I put it in Ford stock. And they were hoping to get that stock to be $1,000, where they would then eventually sell it, and then they could pay back Mr. Bankman with a little bit of interest and keep a nice little square change for themselves. Spoiler alert, these have negative consequences around the year 1929 because of the crash. Now, advertising. Advertising comes big. We've talked about yellow journalism and political cartoons and propaganda. It's time for businesses to start targeting you guys psychologically. They know how you think, how you feel, how you want to feel. If you think advertisements are bad today because of the groundwork these advertisements laid back in the 1920s. So ads appeal to people's needs, frustrations, and anxieties. I mean, they would make national oaths. There's like, you want to look like that buff dude down there? You want to look like Arnold Schwarzenegger? Eat your national oaths, and then eventually you'll be so buff you'll bench press 350 and feel like a total stud. Listerine, 1920s. Profits over 100,000, and they were the kings at selling you what you wanted to sell. It wasn't about selling you the product anymore. It was about selling what you wanted. Selling what you wanted. You had a headache, Listerine fixes that. Have a sore throat, Listerine fixes that. You want your body fat to wash away with the soap, Listerine. Your breath smells bad, your girlfriend won't kiss you, your significant other won't kiss you, Listerine. And it worked. Because in 1927, over $4 million in profit. They figured out what made you tick and what made you hurt, and they poked at it ever so slightly to make you buy it. These products could be anything they wanted it to be with a little bit of advertising. You're not doing so well in the bedroom? National Oats. You need to put on some weight? National Oats. Want to lose weight? National Oats. You want to sell jewelry? Put a pretty woman from the 1920s in a nice flowing yellow dress. You want to sell flour? Put a cute picture of an adorable little baby child. Okay, it was adorable by 1920 standards. I mean, baby child, yes. Hey, that's not the child labor is God. You can't buy children. So, now, I talked about the stock and people making all this money. How are people able to afford all those appliances and cars and light bulbs and radios? Well, you guys heard of layaways and installment plans today? Someone shake their head. Thank you. I see it. There you go. Yes. So, allow consumers to installment plans allow consumers to buy goods on credit by paying a small amount of money. Initially, they paid off the remainder in monthly installments. Has anyone just straight up paid off their entire phone bill or their entire phone? Really? That's proud of you, first of all. Well, usually you go up to pay for your phone, and then they tell you how much they're going to charge you over a period of 2 years, right? Plus an activation fee, plus whatever plan you're on, like the unlimited data, family plan, Slack, whatever. That's what it is. That's that. That's like when you go to buy furniture off layaway and they say we want $1,000 up front and then you pay the other $2,000 off in the course of 5 years. That's what they did here. With these plans, people with modest incomes could buy goods that would otherwise have been beyond their reach. So it was a good thing. But then it also led up to keeping up with the Joneses. Have you guys ever heard of keeping up with the Joneses? Joneses is, a couple of you. Quick, let's keep up with the Joneses.
Basically, where it's an imaginary family that always has the latest stuff, and that you want to get that stuff.
Right. The Joneses is just a very common name. It's like saying John Doe or Jane Doe for unidentified body. Joneses, very relative term. How many of you have the new systems, the PS5 or the Xbox Series X? Anyone online? Anyone online having the new systems? Anyone online? Even a no will work for me right now.
No.
All right, thanks, Robert. Anyways, all right, I do. I have the new PS5, and I'm not trying to flex. This is actually for this lesson. So it's not like while it's good, it's not really worth it at the moment because there's what 2, 3 new PS5 games that are for that generation. The rest of them were just patched games like God of War. That just got a new one, and Call of Duty is already there. But Red Dead 2 eventually, maybe. Let's break across to you want Red Dead 2 on PS5. But you're just having those games patched over. I'm buying into something that doesn't have the economy. But I'm doing it because I know that's going to be the norm and I want it. Like Quentin said, it's the family that has the newest and greatest, and you want it. You want the newest car, the newest phone, the newest Gucci shoes, the newest Supreme brick. Sure, Supreme brick. You want the newest consoles because you know that's what everyone's going to have. This is how I try to keep up with kiddos. Hello, my fellow kids. Now, that's a little bit on the advertising and economic end. Let's talk politics. So, like I told you, Wilson broke Joe on the bed and they lifted him up and took him out of there. So we need a new president. And his name is Warren G. Harding, Republican.
No.
Warren G. Harding. Yeah, I mean, there's a reason because if you look at that, it's not a very complete term, is it? So, he wasn't a very sophisticated person or a politician. He was just an average, everyday man. I mean, that's him right there. Look at that guy. Look at that face. He doesn't know where to look. So, what's important about him is he coined a very important term called normalcy. You guys have probably heard of it before, talking about after the 50s and World War II. But it's when referring to American society and life before World War I, and meant to say we're returning to normal. We're coming down from the height of war, all businesses making guns, machine guns, and stuff like that are done. and they're slowly coming back to making cars and bread and clothing. It's returning back to how normal life was before we got into this worst-like panic. No more food stamps and rationing. It will happen again, like I said, after World War II in the 50s when we all tried to move to the suburbs and live a normal life. Now, this regular guy over here, Mr. Warren G. Harding, also had friends who were lesser officials from Ohio, who took advantage of their friendship. He got them positions in D.C., Senate, Congress, higher positions in Ohio, gave out some money, and they were known as the Ohio Gang. Kind of scandalous. Not supposed to do that. You know, gave all your friends who supported you, and we're just like, I was the right tackle in high school, man. You mind helping me out? He did things he wasn't supposed to. He gave away positions, money to his friends in Ohio. Like I told you, Warren G. Harding, 1921, 1923. Is that a very full presidency? No, because he dies of a sudden heart attack in 1923. Whoopsie, he gone. Well, he made a cool word, and he did some scandalous stuff. Other scandalous stuff involved the Secretary of the Interior, Albert Ball, the Teapot Dome scandal, which is a scandal about oil. I was asked the question of, is the monopoly still around? Yeah, and they still have their fingers in the government, a little bit. You know, just bribing the secretary to ask for oil leases to private companies, or for private companies. That's what they did. They're like, we'll give you $1,000 if you give us oil to use on our steamrollers to pave the way for roads. And that's why, what do you think this is supposed to represent here? This contraption of a teapot wheel? Steamroller, yeah. That's what the teapot is called, the Teapot Dome scandal. And the oil was used to fuel to prevent the metal on metal rubbing to pave these roads, and the oil scattered was going to run over all these regular people to get to the White House. Again, very shady. Ohio Gang shady, this shady. I mean, is taking bribes ever a good thing? Okay, well, you guys can be there. You guys would fit right in for politics then. I think that's So, like I said, Warren G. Harding, he's done. He's dead. He had a sudden heart attack. Poor dude. Had a cool word. But how about another cool guy? Calvin Coolidge. Silent Cal, as they call him. This man had loved the tremendous American prosperity during laissez-faire capitalism. Can someone tell me what laissez-faire means? Really? No one? We talked about it in the Gilded Age. Quentin. It is French. Go ahead. Oh, very funny. Yes, yes, yes. Good job. I'm so proud of you. Hands off capitalism. Remember that thing that we did in the Gilded Age where we're just like, all right, big business, do whatever you need to do. I'm just going to stand in the corner and pretend like I don't see what's going on. That's exactly what we did again. We took some steps back from the progressive era and we just let big business run the show. Because, like Calvin Coolidge said, we had some tremendous American prosperity during that time, so he wanted to do it again. He also talked about isolationism. Now, if we didn't sign the Treaty of Versailles and didn't join the League of Nations, and I told you during the 20s and 30s, America was isolationist, what do you think, what can you infer isolationism means? Isolate by yourself, correct, correct. Isolate and by yourself. We put on the blinders to anything outside of the Pacific and Atlantic Ocean. We were just like, raw America. Everything could be painted blue for all we care on the world map because America was all we saw. So we would draw from European affairs, like not signing the Treaty of Versailles, not joining the League of Nations. Probably remember this figure. We steer clear of foreign entanglement for a little bit of that. We listened to old G Dubs, like Churchill told us about in his farewell address. Don't get involved in foreign affairs. So we did it. But that being said, we had a very specific definition of isolationism. Isolationism comes only in the form of military. We will not get involved in any war, send any troops, or get involved in any military action. Politically, we will not have alliances with Britain or France. We will not make alliances. Those types of ideas. But economics is an entirely different thing, different question. We love trade. We love money. And you still have to trade with other nations to get that inflow of capital and raw resources for manufacturing plants. So economics is fully on the table. We could trade. We could do whatever we want for these countries to get their raw materials here into America to then produce more. That's Silent Cow. Good looking guy. I mean, look at that fancy chair. So cartoon has something to do a little bit with what we talked about. The sources better keep to the old channel. What do you think is political cartoon can cost? Right. Right. What does this ship kind of look like? Titanic. And what does those look like? Correct. So what happened to the Titanic? Iceberg. Thank you. It's sunk by an iceberg. So this is saying to avoid getting sunk by these icebergs of foreign entanglement, treaty with France and Paris, foreign treaties, League of Nations, we should return to the old channel. We should just return to the old channel because I'm going to ask you the question. Do you think this is a pro-isolationist view or a con-isolationist view? Do you think it's pro? What? Con? You don't think this is for isolationism? Is it pro? So it's pro-isolationism. It's telling us we should return to the old channels because the Titanic is going to get sunk with messing with foreign powers. I'm going to remember this since technically it's pro. Maybe. So that's all the political stuff out of the way. You have to learn about Harding, that died in a few years, and Calvin Coolidge, who was a cool guy who liked laissez-faire and isolationism. But now let's talk about social. I told you about the lost generation at the beginning of this PowerPoint. I know it's probably not on there for some reason, but please write down somewhere the lost generation. You're really gonna remember that. The lost generation was names that vets returning from World War I gave to American writers, and a lot of the generation took up that name. The lost generation is a cohort of people. Please get off the phone. Thank you. The lost generation was a cohort of people, a generation of people who basically missed World War I. They missed the biggest event in human history besides the Big Bang and the dinosaurs dying from a meteor. Because they couldn't fight in the biggest war. They couldn't get into the draft. So these lost was being referred to directionless, unspirited, not knowing where to go in their life. And the vets who returned from this war basically gave that to these writers and other people being like, well, this is what we did. What are you going to do with your life? These American writers, Scott Fitzgerald and Ernest Hemingway, probably heard of Mr. Fitzgerald. He gave us The Great Gatsby, great book. Made it to a couple good movies, got turned to this meme. But these writers were very critical of civilization in general in American society. They were disillusioned by society and politics. They were disillusioned. I mean, can you blame them? Government's in the pocket of big business still. People in society still not being treated well, even though we got rid of child labor and got past the 19th Amendment. People are still not being treated as fair. They were disillusioned by all that.
The lost generation, is that what the nickname given to the vets from the American War?
No, so vets returning from World War I nickname that it was given to the American writers. Other way around. Okay. Vets called American writers. That is phrased a bit weird. But it's lost generation means directionless for the people because they couldn't fight World War I, so now they're asking. The vets are now asking again, what are you going to do with your life? What are you planning on doing? I just fought one of the greatest, one of the scariest, biggest sports. What do you get? Take a nap? I mean, some people slept with fishes. We'll get to that later. The mafia becomes things. So, a quote, morality was just a lie told by the government. Morality, and this quote is saying that we, the common people, have to practice what the government will never do, which is care about people and view humans as actually living things, not numbers and stuff. Just caring about people. It's a lie told by the government. That's how they felt with all the political stuff going on and what was happening in society. They also thought industrialism was crushing the human spirit, that big business is putting the worker down and not allowing people to express themselves and be free. So like I said, Fitzgerald gave us The Great Gatsby and then eventually like this amazing meme. Hemingway, though, wrote this. I was embarrassed by the words sacred, glorious, and sacrifice. We had read them on proclamations. How for a long time, and I had seen nothing sacred, and the things that were glorious had no glory, and the sacrifices were like the stockyards in Chicago. If nothing was done with the meat except to bury it, abstract words such as glory, honor, courage were obscene. Powerful thought. Does anyone want to
What is
give
the Great Gatsby? I've heard about that. I
the
don't know.
book about like 1920 society? Rich guy falling in love with a girl. Good movie. You can watch it. You don't want to read the book. You can watch the movie with both of them. Does anyone want to try to take a guess or gander what this book could mean, or like to them what they think it means? Want to know?
It's not like the friends also work with glorified.
That's really good, especially if you read that the book was called Farewell to Arms. It's really good. It's saying that these words that they grew up upon and were used in war like sacred and glorious and sacrifice had no meaning to them specifically. How were they supposed to achieve this glory? What are they supposed to sacrifice? The words to the lost generation had no meaning like it did to people in the Victorian era, people returning vets from World War I. And it lost its meaning to them, what it had to those people. So, besides this quote, he was considered one of the greatest American novelists. He wrote about whatever interested him. He talked about war, bullfights, hunting, fishing, love, and violence. He was also a severe alcoholic. He moved to the Key West, Florida, and Cuba, and would eventually commit suicide in 1961. Hemingway also fought on the Italian front for Italy. He fought for Italy, but still is an American citizen. Kind of weird. But a great theory that he had, because he was a award-winning novelist, like I said. He had the iceberg theory. He has no icebergs, right? They're bigger on the bottom than they are on top. Well, he was saying that he wrote about different things because your writing should be able to be deep by being seen on the surface level. You should be able to look at the surface and read it, understand the deeper meaning. Not be like, well, of course the red door represents the death of the mother in Shakespeare of this certain play, and you have your language arts teacher go, it's like, no. You should be able to read the book and understand the deeper meaning by just scratching it. You should not go looking for every metaphor and simile in there. Just a fun fact to have. Now, more social stuff. The Harlem Renaissance. Very important. Please remember that. It will definitely be on your text. The cultural rebirth was centered in Harlem, which is a city, and was brought together a group of talented writers, composers, musicians, and artists, and entertainers who trumpeted the cause of the new Negro, who was assertive and proud of his or her African heritage. This was basically African Americans embracing who they are and showing it outwards in new things like music and dancing and writers. They were embracing their African heritage, embracing who they were, and weren't trying to hide too much in the shadows. Langston Hughes, considered the leader of this Harlem Renaissance, was a famous African American poet who won many awards. And he wrote about the African American culture, not for himself or not what represents himself, but represents the culture as a whole, which is why people think which is why he was considered the leader, because he was the first one to do this. He was writing about his people and their heritage as a whole, which led to a lot of people to do the same in music and art and dancing, which is entertainers and dancers. Very important. This is a rebirth, a resurgence, or not a resurgence, a renaissance of people embracing their African American heritage. The Charleston is one of these dances, as long as the Harlem Shake and dances like that. I like to call it the TikTok dance of yesterday. Now you guys are going to think I'm crazy, but I might be a little crazy, but you guys do these fun dances that the old people are always like, those darn kids, they don't understand what they're doing. Why don't they go to college or focus on their schoolwork and get off my lawn? Well, and you guys are just like, we're just trying to express ourselves. It's not going to let me play it. Remind me before class is over to play the Harlem Shake or the Charleston video. It's really like the dance is always good. But that's the same thing that happened for these days. You had the old Victorian people who were like, you must have your background where on straight, books on your head, 6 inches apart when you move the Jesus and you waltz. And you waltz. But these guys wanted to be loose and free and shake their feet around, and girls wanted to show their ankles, which was terrible at the time. Oh no. Absolutely, you scandalous beings. How dare you?
Can you imagine taking someone from the 1920s to now?
They probably suffered a heart attack. But this was one of the clashes in the cultures, like I was telling you about. Traditional Victorians versus new generation, and just like today, of boomers versus zoomers. You're having these clash of ideas of what dancing is supposed to mean and how it's supposed to be from official to loosey-goosey. Alright, jazz. Like jazz? Remember that clip, the music I was playing through in the beginning? Was Jazz by Louis Armstrong. This, very important, was the first cultural America phenomenon that we did not steal or borrow. This wasn't an offshoot of something that was already European and given an American twist to it. It wasn't something that we found in an old culture and like, oh, we like that and made it ours. No, this was purely American. It started in America and it spread out and then to the rest of America and then out to the world. Jazz spread throughout America and would be adopted by white musicians and audiences. Everyone liked it. Even if it started with African American culture, it didn't stay there. It was embraced by white people, which is great. It could be improvised. It was meant for liberations, and for both the artists and audiences to symbolize the time also. It was something that could be easily adapted. It didn't have to be one thing. I played you a clip from Louis Armstrong this morning of the music, as well. Duke Ellington is another popular jazz artist. Good music, very important. Jazz, probably a true-false question, was jazz the first American culture phenomenon? I want to remember that. Jazz, first American phenomenon, great, meant spread for not only African Americans but also white people and spread throughout the rest of the world. And was the first pop culture. So, where would these shindigs happen? Nightclubs. This is the Cotton Club, where all these musicians and dancers and people who wanted to embrace African culture would come together and dance the jazz, doing the Charleston or the Harlem Shake dance, the jazz. You have Langston Hughes, who I was telling you about, the famous African American poet. And you have a great depiction of what the inside of these clubs might look like, of people dancing and jazz music, people having a good time, embracing their African American heritage. Movies were also there. You guys remember the Century video that we played last week? Where it was talking about the build up to World War I, but also mentioned movies, the realistic flicks, and then fiction. We have more fiction coming out. You got Mickey Mouse, you got The Sheik and Lone Sensei. You have slapstick silent films with The Kid and Charlie Chaplin. I haven't seen any of Charlie Chaplin stuff on YouTube. It still kind of holds up to this day of kind of out those slapstick comedy, which is comedy through like physical humor and stuff. Like you slap across the face. So you have actresses like Greta Garbo, Rudolph Alpino, Al Jolson, Flora Bow, the Marx Brothers, Charlie Chaplin. And if you look at it, there's a couple of women on there, isn't there? When the 19th Amendment got passed, women now have a greater role in life. They can now take more of these jobs. They're still not equal to men, but they have taken a great step forward. And I talk about women because our next slide should be new women. But you look at that, it's like a given power part. The new women, known as flappers, which was a derogatory term given to them back then, but what they were called, so we still talk about it today. These new women were confident after World War I, coupled with disposable income. They also had money they could burn, because remember, they took jobs while the men were gone during WW1. They had increased presence in public area, and they not constricted by Victorian norms. They rejected what their parents and their mothers thought of what was supposed to be Victorian, the long skirts and the corsets and the sun hats. They would show their ankles, they would smoke, they would drink, they would gamble. Men were scared that they might turn into men because they were acting so much like men because they were drinking and smoking and gambling. But they were having a good time and they were expressing themselves. They challenged gender roles and rejected their mother's ways in favor of individualism and modern choices. That clash of modernism versus traditionalism, the clash between Victoria era and the lost generation. No corsets, no long skirts, showing off ankles, dancing, showing off shoulders. I mean, what's that? Have any of you guys or gals gone against what your parents' wishes that maybe you wore something they didn't approve of? Well, I'm a good child too, but we've all been rebels once. I have a story about rebellion. It's the one time I ever did it, and now if I look back on it, it was probably really dumb if it had just passed. But I snuck out to go to the movie theater, drive-in movie theater with my friends. Don't remember what the movie was, so it probably wasn't that good, or it was old. But it was a good time. My dad was away at work. He worked midnights. My mom was asleep. It was 11:30, almost 12 at night. We snuck out, went to the movie theaters, throwing popcorn at the screens, doing whatever kids did like 3 years ago. And I got back, it was like 2 o'clock in the morning. I had to open the garage because the key, how it works for us, is put the key on the inside of the front door and keep it locked like that. So you can't just unlock it and then go through the front door because someone will know in the morning it's unlocked. The door is always locked. So I probably already woke up my mom, or she was already awake when I left. Military crawled up the stairs, did a barrel roll into my room, and slunk under the blanket and went to bed. And then that next morning, all my stuff. Like my TV was gone, my computer was gone, all my consoles were gone. I still had my iPad because I needed that for school here. I was one of the first kids to have iPads here. And it was a very angry note on my desk. And I was in big trouble. But it was fun. I probably could have just asked to go to my friend's movie play that night, but I didn't have a driver's license at that time either. That was my tale of rebellion. So obviously, for those who say that you didn't rebel to lie, you did something that made your parents mad that they didn't approve of, that you still do. Like maybe what they question you like, why are you watching people play a game when you can play the game? Or why are you streaming on YouTube or Twitch? I don't understand you young people.
People ask questions like why do you watch people play video games? So the easy answer is you can have them waste their money on a game. That way you can see if the game is fun or not. And that's
I just always bring up the thing of football. Why are you watching people play football when you can play football? Now I told you, not the same. So I told you about prohibition and crime, huh? Well, in the crime, you guys remember the temperance movement when that crazy nun lady with the hatchet was chopping up all the alcohol barrels and destroying bars because they were tired of men getting drunk and then coming home and taking out their bad day on their significant others? Well, America was just like, we hear you, we get it. Alcohol, of course, is the problem for everything. So we took it away. Alcohol and the consumption had its roots with the U.S. temperance movement in the mid-1800s. I just told you about that. Temperance movement, crazy hat lady chopping up all the alcohol barrels. With the quote of, no power on earth has such influence to terrorize and make cowards of men as the power of liquor, or liquor power. Just saying that liquor makes men do really crazy dumb things. This was the 18th Amendment, by the way, that took away alcohol. No more alcohol in America, we're dry. But if you had something that you've always had taken away from you, what are you going to do? Take it back, sneak it in, just do it anyways? That's what these guys did. Many drank in illegal saloons called speakeasies. These are like little underground places where you knock on the door 3 times, give a password, and get down to $10 to let you in. And they still exist today. There's one in Seattle and throughout the country where you can go to these speakeasies and they've been turned into like high-class bars because of the history behind them. But they're hard to find. They're like things that go down this back alley, down the slide stairs, make 2 rights on the left, and then knock on the door. Like, they are hard to find, but they exist out there today and are very popular and expensive. So, like we said, if things are made illegal, you're just going to do it anyways. This led to an increase in crime and lawlessness because if things go away, people are going to find a way to make those things like moonshine and sell them to you and make a profit on it, which leads to the underground crime. Basically, this amendment led to the mafia in America and like huge crime syndicates in America because they had something they could easily profit on and make. It was very difficult to enforce. I mean, we all know that if you get something taken away from you, like you can't just walk up to a smoker and slap away their cigarette and be like, no, and then walk away and they're just like, yeah, okay, and then they take out another one and put it in their mouth. Like, it's just not going to work. It's difficult to enforce something, especially when people have been drinking alcohol longer than they've been drinking water. You gotta remember, when these guys got off the Mayflower and landed here, all of the drinking water was bad. Or they didn't have ways to purify it or find it. So they were drinking beer more often than they were drinking water. And plus alcohol was a lot more potent back then. So organized crime, like I said, came from this because they could make it and sell it and ran away from the cops and got people drunk in these speakeasies. I mean, where do you think the speakeasies got the alcohol? From the crime scene. So then it took a few years. It was called the Great American Experiment because we immediately repealed the 18th Amendment with the 21st. The 18th Amendment was just like, no alcohol. The 18th Amendment was like, well, JK, what were we thinking? Of course. You have people, this is a peaceful protest for wanting beer. You have people have doctor notes to try to get some alcohol. Like today when people try to get medical marijuana doctor notes. Funny how history repeats itself when something's illegal and people want it. But yes, from this like, you need to remember, I mean it's legal now in Colorado and the other states. Gotta remember, 21st Amendment repealed the 18th Amendment. 18th Amendment was prohibition. 21st Amendment was JK, just kidding, alcohol is okay. Now, on the sports, like I was telling Quentin earlier, people want to see the sports balls because they have all that disposable income. They have radios. They want to be entertained. Entertain the people. Or the famous quote from the movie that I can't remember. Or are you entertained? Key sports figures dominated their sports and captured public attention. First-time athletes crossed over into mainstream homes because I'm telling you, they had radios. They can turn into 99.9 The Nun, and they can hear the Dodgers play at the stadium. I don't remember which one, but the stadium. You finally could live the American dream of having a hot dog in one hand, popcorn in the other, and yelling at the Red Sox. Most athletes usually had regular jobs and not paid. In season, they got paid very little, so don't view it like as $1 million contracts today. It's more of like you got to play, you got some money for doing what you love, now go work with that. The iconic period for baseball, boxing, and college football. There is a great movie called Cinderella Man, which is at the tail end of the 20s into the 30s, about a boxer who goes from being a big shot to then going into retirement, and then you see a beautiful scene of them having all this luxury and a nicer apartment and watches and tuxes. And then the next scene is all that goes away and they're living in like a beach room apartment. Their china is bad. The wife only kept like a pearl necklace because that was all she had left. She didn't want to give it away. The dad just in bread lines, the boxers in bread lines, and is going to the job, going to every job he can, trying to get one. Great movie. Named 2005. Now, what could have gone wrong after all the great things I told you about? Politics, like nah. Economics is skyrocketing. We're shooting for the moon, and we have some social clash. That's fine. Well, guys, the stonks fell. All that investing and taking from Bankman, giving it to the stock market, just people buying on credit, all of that fell flat in our face. It's egg on our face. We didn't shoot for the moon. We didn't hold the crack. Dogecoin didn't pay out in this surge. Believe it. Black Tuesday. Very important day. The beginning of the Great Depression. October 29th, 1929, the stock market crashed. The 1920s marked great prosperity for America. Stock market expansion. And then we fell flat on our face. How could this possibly happen in 9 short years? From being economic powerhouses to now being a whimpering kicked puppy because we're struggling to keep our people alive. Well, overproduction and expansion. Because the assembly line and being able to get all those cars out like one every 20 minutes, we now had way too many things. Too many things. And now people who already had those things weren't going to go buy another car. If you had a car, you weren't going to buy another. And people were starting to be able not to afford cars because of the crash. So now you have all these cars sitting around on the lot not doing it. You also have cars sitting around on the streets too because eventually gas gets to be so high you can't afford to pay to put gas in your car. Which I have to do after school too. I can't afford to put gas in my car either. So, too much buying on credit, the credit card. People were able to do that so easily. People who only had a couple $100 were buying on credit for things that were $500, $600 and not paying it off. And if you don't pay things off, that's bad. You go into debt, try to take out a loan from the bank guy again to pay off your debt, your loan, and it's just a spiral of debt and loans and debts and loans. Too much credit buying stocks. Like I said, take out $300 from the bank, try to invest it, hopefully you make $1,000, pay off the bank, walk away from cash. It didn't work out. Bank was spending all their money, all the people's money to invest there on stocks that weren't going to pay out. High tariff stock trade. our president put high tariffs of all the incoming stuff that we had. The only thing that we're allowing in, because remember, isolationism, we're okay with economics, but we put high tariffs, so then countries that pay high prices to get their stuff shipped over here, so then we can produce it or turn it into raw materials to produce it. Most companies overproduce, like I told you. Ford made so many cars that people either already had a car, didn't need a car, couldn't afford the car. Now all these cars are sitting here. Many countries dependent on the U.S. This is going to look from a world history perspective, but our economy suffered. Everyone else does too. Remember, you guys remember who made the foreign policy dollar diplomacy? Not Woodrow Wilson. That was moral diplomacy. Pat. Who said Pat? Awesome. Yes, Pat. Remember, invest with the dollar, not have the big stick like Teddy Roosevelt. America invested into all these foreign markets, and we invested more so into Germany after World War I, so they at least had a leg to stand on as they shoveled themselves out of this huge hole of debt that they had. But then once we crashed and our dollar meant nothing, every other industry that we invested in crashed. Spain and Portugal, England, France, Russia, Germany, Italy, India, all that crashed, all gone. And that is the end of our talk. Now we have an activity we have to do, and then I have an exit ticket for you guys to do before we leave today. It's called the Instagram activity. I'm going to have to explain it twice. I'll explain it once for you guys and then once for the online kids. This is what me and CrossFit's Instagram looks like, by the way. Okay, well then this is what I think Instagram looks like. Wow, I'm sorry to have offended your eyes. I'm a Verizon guy myself. We don't need to get into that. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, please, eyes up here. Eyes up here, everybody. You gotta want to know how to do this. This is going to be a good 30-point assignment to help boost up your grade. So, we're going to be talking about the 4 events. There's the Harlem Renaissance, changing roles of women, prohibition/organized crime, and jazz. I'm going to assign each one of these a number and then give that number to you. Remember the number, and then I'll continue with the rest of the direction. Harlem Renaissance is 1. Changing roles of women, aka new women, is 2. Prohibition/organized crime is 3, and jazz is 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. Go your 4. I want to be big. Too bad. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1. Does everyone know their number? Because I'm not going to recount it out. You're 4, Joe. All right. So, there's a few things I need you to do with this. So, if you read it, you need to draw a picture of the event. You need to add a year. You need to caption that picture. You need to have a creative hashtag that summarizes the event and create a 5-message conversation regarding your event. It has to be about the event. It can't be like, oh boy, I like mayonnaise. What did you get for Christmas? No, it's got to be like, hey, what is the Harlem Renaissance about? Well, the Harlem Renaissance was a renaissance that happened in the city of Harlem that brought people together and embraced American culture. That's what it's got to be like. So, got a little icon/profile picture right here. Your username can go there. This middle box is the picture. The box below it is going to be the caption and the year. And then the 5 message conversation, since the phone got, chopped down significantly, can go on the back. It's got to be colored. It's got to be creative. Because on Friday for you guys, you will be presenting these. No, I'm not kidding. You have,
Or if you guys don't work, you're presenting today and all your crap will work.
it's for a good 30-point celebration grade. You have the rest of today to do it besides the 5 minutes for the exit ticket. And you have all Thursday for homework, and then on Friday we'll present. Does anyone have any? What? I know, I'm saying on Thursday homework. Yeah. Yes.
Does that username have to be like the picture?
Yes.
I can't just make it my.
No. So on Canvas, under the Roaring 20s module, there is a page called Instagram page. I know we're very creative naming things around here. And then there are four links. Go to the link that represents the thing that you're doing. There's a Harlem Renaissance link, there's a New Women link, there is a Prohibition link, and lastly, there is a Jazz link. Read that so you can get more information and reinforce the things that we talked about up here, and then do the second. Has everyone got that? We all good? I'll be around for questions after I do the online. Online kids, cameras on.
I got restricted.
Blame Cross. You ever talk to Cross about it? I'll try to help you in a second. Everyone, Reagan, Breven, Gianna, turn on your cameras. All right. So you guys, there is a separate, I want you to do this on a separate sheet of paper. You are going to, like I told the online kids, like look at this. This is the format that you guys will be following. You're going to put an icon in the tiny circle, a username, draw a picture, write a caption, create a hashtag, and put the year down here in this third box, and then give me a five message conversation. I'm about to number you off. You guys ready? Thumbs up if you're ready. All right. Robert, you're 1. Dylan, you're 2. Luke, you're 3. Cole, you're 4. Reagan, you're 1. Brevin, you're 2. Gianna, you're 3.
What does the caption have to include again?
So the caption has to be describing the event of what you drew. And then the 5 message conversation has to also be about the event. It can't be something random like you like mayonnaise or anything like that. It's got to be like, well, a famous jazz artist was Louis Armstrong, who created such and such song, and then continue there. And it's 5 messages total, not 10, so 5 bubbles.
So any like big event like jazz, like we can do that.
What was that, Cole?
I said so like I foresaw jazz. So do we just do like any like significant event like for jazz like during the 1920s or?
Yeah, you can talk about significant arts too or significant instruments, but read the Canvas pit, read the thing on Canvas to give you more information about jazz. That should also help you out.
Okay.
Does anyone else have any more questions?
What are big things that we really have to include?
So the big things are you have to have an illustrated image, a username, a caption, a creative hashtag, the year, and then the 5 message conversation. Does that help you? All right, good. All right. Now, Brevin and Gianna and Dylan, can you guys hear me?
Yeah, I heard you.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. Is Hannah really feel that bad?
No, there was a mistake.
All right, I'll be around if you guys have any questions. Don't be afraid to ask. You can trace that. Don't forget, it does have to be colored. There are colors in the back. What? No, do on Friday because you're gonna be presented. You're first, Colonel. Because you got too crazy at church. So where's the assignment? Dylan, you're gonna be doing this on a separate sheet of paper, but the Roaring 20s module, it's called Instagram page. It will give you more information for the number that you were assigned for the topic. And then you have to draw the Instagram thing on another page. Does that help you out? Give me a thumbs up, a yes in chat. Awesome, thank you.
What's the assignment called on campus?
Oh, sorry, I thought someone was at the door. Awesome.
On the assignment, you have to go to modules.
Yeah, modules. It's called the Roaring 20s module. Yes.
I don't know how to make my internet go. Are they really? Do I do it?
We got a fire drill.
Oh, great.
We're getting out of here at 35, right, Charles?
Yeah.
Okay, well, so you guys will have about 25 minutes before I put up an exit ticket, or we'll talk about an exit ticket, what we'll do. And then you guys can write that quickly, you can get out of there. You can split your bell work in half and you can write on the exit ticket.
He's not quite done yet.
I was gonna notice, but it seems like you don't have my legs now. You play the trumpet well?
I mean, yeah.
Are you a marching band? Awesome. You guys do much of anything right now because of? Oh, that's true. So no. Oh. As I used to do performing arts stuff at school, not marching band, but I did theater, so we were good friends in the marching band. Walking around. Yes. So you can put your here. And what will this one be like? So you can put an icon here, you can put your music, you can delivery. Wow. You can put like for like, but then you're usually go here, the date can either go here, like and then you have the cap reattach that. I have a conversation. So yeah, I feel like it'd be so you would be between you and somebody else. It's gotta be describing the event. Can't be like I like it. Yeah. Or Monica, either way. Yes. Well, you can draw like what wind like crazy mountain. You can draw with I got maybe you can someone in the middle of doing the harm station. Draw that. You're that talented. I don't know.
I think
It probably is going to be cutting out. I have been recording on the computer too.
Yeah, do it.
Oh, of course, you wanna go with the hard stick up on the big.
Oh, God, we could do the whole thing.
Or the-
Yeah.
or the Carlton?
That'd be
Yeah, I
good.
know.
Can you just move it?
Online kids, are you good? Anyone can give me a hands up in chat?
Can you list the main things we need in the chat? Because it's kind of
Yeah,
hard
no
to
problem.
hear you.
Yeah,
Thank
no
you.
problem. Excuse me, get this paper. Thank you for asking. That would make things so much easier. So you need to draw an image. You need to have add the year. Oh, yeah. I need to go grab my charger, else my computer's gonna die on me. Add the year. Caption image, caption the drawing. And, create a hashtag. And the create 5 message conversation. All right. Everyone, this is the Charleston dance that I was going to show you on PowerPoint before I wasn't allowed access. So this is what, think about Victorian era of like the stiff and proper swing back and forth. And then compare it to this. That's correct. No.
That's my stonks.
Yeah, that's your stonks. Where's the vid? Oh, is it over here?
No game. I got AMC, buddy.
Zoom. Cross, how do I go over to? Oh. Hey, Cross. Right here. I thought I was. It doesn't want to go that way. Oh, I was going to the left, not the right. Okay. There we go. So this is going to be the Charleston, everybody. Look at that blatant product placement they put there.
This is definitely a library creation.
Oh, definitely, but yeah. There's your flapper women right there, your new women. Look at all that movement. Wouldn't be able to do that in a Victorian era dress. He's right there. He can't dance. He was only supposed to be there. Plus the music's good too. That was the Charleston, everyone. All right. Does everyone in the online class now get it with what I put in the chat and everything you're supposed to have? Any feedback from anyone? Oh, thank you, Gianna. I mentioned the camera to you guys so they can see that I am checking diligently on my students and their work. Try to get like 10 to 12 minutes before we do an exit. It wasn't good. Yeah, it's gonna be kind of rich. So, you yeah, you can do that, or no more alcohol. What is the fun? I don't know the answer to that question. Oh, there is an answer. Yes. Yeah. So I like a sign down. Like you're all like, you can draw people. Yeah. Yeah, like you carry on like it's a club. Yeah. Nope. Well, you didn't show the. Think your way around the rules. I know, I knew. I didn't take it. Well, hopefully we can get everyone taking the test by this week, so then we can start doing the Oh, where you can No, you get to present today, Joe. Nope. If you're not gonna be here on Friday, how am I gonna know you're doing the work? I am doing the work. You gotta show that creation off to the rest of the class. I'm bullying. What is for enjoying pictures? Oh, I'm not excited for today, sadly. Maybe for a final. Yeah, let's do it. Didn't we just have a video about bullying? You know, one day we're now. Don't do alcohol, that's not. I said no alcohol. Great project you're working on right now. Thank you. Yeah. Don't miss.
What? No.
You guys have, well, 7 minutes for this, and you have homework on, you can go on Thursday when you're not here. You need a little bit last time on Friday, you have plenty of time to cover something. That's not that ratio. Once you're right for the good anyways, it's all you do is get an icon. But everyone was like, I'm gonna put it as a there. So that thing, that you do that.
Shut up.
Exactly.
Can I just color the
As long as, I mean, weren't you the one to put all the colors of red, blue, green, on your assignment? Like, having that one?
Oh, yeah, I'll do that. I'll put like a little grass.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Grass.
Grass. Do we get our front segment grass? Yes. Your new one, you can do like, new ladies, new right,
Or some colors you have colors. Write it out.
Let's go with the mic, right? With the mic. Yeah.
Not
Tall, very tall microphone. All the way back there. Yeah. You can fix it with action and
How do you draw barrels?
and then like you share with the hashtag, it could be like new women, new rights and joint things that they're gonna do before.
Because I know what's in it. I'm not going
They look like that. Let's see, right? I can't remember anything. What?
You're being a bully.
I don't bully.
Touch
So we
that
have that bullying
I
How you doing, online kids? You making progress? Does anyone want to show the progress that they've made so far? Anyone? Anyone want to show their progress at all? All right, I'll remember this.
You always say it.
This was like $30.
What?
Embroidery can get pretty expensive.
Yeah, it's just
Guys, got a few minutes left for today before we do some exit ticket fun.
There we go. No, there's like more. I'm literally brown. Yeah, brown. Like 5 more of those.
I can't spell it. I do the old.
I messed up on cancel.
Oh my gosh. I think that was when I broke up with her.
You'll be like a jump. But I go through the thing. I'm sorry. No, I'm just I looked down on the outline.
Why did you come before I put up the
Because I didn't know it spelled wrong. You're like, do you get it? And I was like, yeah. So I just kind of made it obvious.
Wow.
Wow.
Wow. He said.
What year? No, never said that.
Now he looks very pretty.
No, wait, I thought you were.
It's okay. There was effort made.
Yeah, actually, yeah. Wow, that was amazing. That is exactly my idea.
She called me.
He said he was Texas. I don't care.
I'm the band.
You're the victim. After you say yeah, it is, right? You're the source of the problem here. Oh, you're speaking. Yeah, I know. I was being hurt, so I don't hurt it. Okay, that's a great deal.
That's a good describing the event.
I got you guys.
Those are good assholes.
No,
You know why? You know why? Oh, thanks. See, that's kind of idea.
I'm not fake. I don't know what you're talking about. I'm being 100% real right now.
Oh,
No
thank you.
sarcasm.
No sarcasm whatsoever. You're not known for anything like that.
I don't know. No, I'm never sarcastic. Oh, please stole your money. Please stole your money. Please stole your money. Oh my God.
Sorry.
You stole it, your money.
This is our time to be childish. Come on.
My instincts kicked in.
Oh. I expect you to watch that. All right. Ladies and gentlemen,
I make a great compliment.
eyes up here, everybody. Remember the bell work I made to you?
Yeah. Alright.
You should split that paper in half. We're gonna do an exit ticket right now. You still got 10 minutes left. This might take some thinking, so I'm giving you a bit of time here. The question is, give me a positive or negative impact that World War I left on the 1920s. And explain why you think that. Give me a positive or negative reason why World War I left an impact on the 1920s. And tell me why. And then write your name on it, and you're gonna turn that into me before you go today. Online kids, did you hear that?
Yes, sir.
Good, thank you. First, all of you heard it. You guys can write that in the chat, and I'll go check it out, and I'll give you credit, and I will give you the credit for it. And I'm not expect like this is gonna be more than just a single sentence, guys. Think of it like a mini SAQ. Give me a positive or negative reason of how World War I left a positive or negative impact on the Roaring Twenties and why. So tell me how World War I left a positive or negative impact on the 1920s and tell me why. We talked about a few different reasons. You can use some prior knowledge or use some hindsight to talk maybe about a future event that we didn't cover. And like I said, online kids, please write this in chat. Okay. And then Joe, I need to see your thing before, I need to see your Instagram page before you leave there, because you're not gonna be here on Friday. How far did you get?
I didn't color it. No, one thing about
What's up? You find this kind of great? Tell me a negative or positive effect World War I has left on the Roaring Twenties. We talked about a few of them, and you're even able to use prior knowledge and context in the future.
You don't need to read it on the run.
Damn. Tell me a positive.
No, I don't know.
Can you just give it to me?
Hold on. I got this.
That's in your notes page. Look.
It's in the notes.
There's literally a thing called brother talk.
Only on first.
Yeah, one side, and then you have to explain to me why. Think of it like a mini.
Did that last?
Huh? Well, nothing's gonna last forever.
Got you that.
Where you get that?
You guys want to buy this one? Back in.
Yeah.
Really excited.
Pre-COVID. Cordero, did I used to feed you guys?
Yes.
Remember what I used to do? Just walk down the dog. Goodbye. Say goodbye. It would be so funny. I just
There you go.
Somebody
Thanks, Cole.
Then it's back and I just put it
Thank you, Lou.
good stuff.
Thank you, Gianna. Thank you, Brevin. Who runs to the Great Depression because Oh, that's awesome. Thank you guys. Thank you. I'm still missing one from Dylan, and I'm missing one from Reagan. I believe that's it. Wow. All right.
Mine isn't turned in yet, but I'm about to right now.
That's how I think.
Yeah, make sure you write your name, guys. So you get a copy of the handwriting machine.
I wouldn't. I think the federal government is supposed
today. I'm talking about this. I would suggest. Did you have your study guide done?
I would hope it's more than that.
Hey, can you just give me 100 on the stuff?
No.
I'll give you
What?
also, give me 100.
Oh, they want the ones that Joe wants?
Actually, no, I don't even know.
There you go.
Yeah, give me one.
It's not happening.
Oh, sorry.
Because one, I don't want to go there, two.
I'm not afraid of it at all. Oh, evacuation drill.
When do we, Gianna, you turn in the Instagram page. You guys will also be presenting on Friday. That sound good? Hear me? You'll be presenting it on Friday as well.
Okay, wait. So is there not like a submission or Canvas?
There's no submission on Canvas. The presenting is the submission, and I'll put a check mark by your name.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. So, but you guys get ready for that on Friday. Reagan, thank you. Robert, again, thank you. Oh, thank you.
And there's like a cinnamon
You
one.
just did a quick thumbs up of it right now. You want to for your brother?
You have the Danish Costco?
Are you confident?
What, is it like a 20, like a 25 out of 35?
Let's see, that's a 30 point. So let's see. All right, good job, everybody.
Let me talk to Luke.
Oh, well, yeah.
Why do you want to talk to Luke?
Luke. Luke. Hey. Hey,
Hi.
you play on Tuesday? Here?
We play. I have to look. I think so.
Hey, cause I'm on the
I'll
list
check.
now. I'm on the list.
Oh, really?
I'm gonna be there. I'm gonna be there. The next
Okay.
home game on Tuesday, I'm there.
If you want to
Alright.
retake your
Okay.
test, please
Yeah.
follow the study guides. From this moment forward, if you want to retake it, it's gonna be a stipulation. I want to see that you put effort in and that you actually tried and you failed because you just didn't know something, not that you didn't study for it. Online kids, that goes for you too. If you want to retake something, please fill out your study guides from this moment forward. That's a stipulation, okay? Thank you. Thank you, Robert. All right, we're gonna stop share. And then we're gonna pause. Turn on your cameras. Everybody wave. Have a good one, everybody. Have a good rest of your day. All right. Bye. Bye, everybody. Goodbye.